Hey guys, Adam here from the Entity Blade. We're just going to get started in a few minutes here with our Mobility Cups or MobilityPod webinar or functional Chinese cupping. You should be able to just see kind of a blank screen that says now you're sharing your screen, and you should be able to hear my voice as well. If you do miss this or don't receive any information that we do talk about, we will be recording this and we'll send it out to you once we are done the actual webinar here today. So you should be able to see a PowerPoint presentation in the front of my screen now as well. So welcome to our functional cupping webinar on our mobility pod. So today we're going to talk a little bit about history of cupping, how cupping can integrate into your practice, and a little bit of the history and application of cupping. A ton of information out there regarding cupping nowadays. So we want to make sure we provide the best information for you and everything that you guys can help your patients and provide them with the best information. So this webinar today is brought to you by the M2T Blade. So we are a instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization tool. So the M2T stands for Myofascial Mobility Tool. So if you haven't tried our tool, we're the only tool that actually customizes and makes your own color of the tool as well. So a little bit different of our mobility pods. So this is a picture we did with our course last in Asia. So we're just bringing this course from Asia into North America, Canada, and the UK. So we integrate Chinese cupping, functional cupping with the silicone pods with instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. A little bit about what we're going to do today is if you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you'll see a ton of different ways to integrate cupping. So with us, we actually integrate it through movement. So we're going to find the lines of dysfunction, find out where those tissues are adhesed, and we're actually apply the cups and go through movement to re-educate and retrain the body of how to actually move. We're going to talk about those steps in a couple of slides as well. So we'll go get the nitty gritty stuff out of the way first. So just about the m2tblade.com, a little bit about our programs. So we developed the M2T Blade, which is the myofascial mobility tool. It's a it's an instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. Sorry, my internet just went out there a little bit. Just make sure that we get caught up. We also developed a mobility pods, or new functional Chinese cupping. We created Vigor Tape, which is chill, kinetic, and black label. We developed courses on proper utilization of the entity, corrective mobility exercise selection, and integration into practice. We're currently located in Burlington, Ontario, Pompano Beach, Florida. We also have offices in Manila, and we're just doing stuff in Singapore now as well. So if you want to learn more about these courses, you can always go to mtblade.com. We have a list of courses all the way through. So a little bit about the sales pitch. So again, we want to make sure that this webinar is full about education and that you're learning. So if you want to buy the cups, you actually get a 25% discount on mobility pods and courses. Once we're done this webinar today, you'll be able to use code webinar25 on the checkout. You'll receive 25% off mobility pod courses and cupping sets. With all those cupping sets as well, you do receive free shipping. So there's no cost on the shipping as well. And we do always get this question as well. We do have some upcoming courses in 2019. So in 2019, we're in Toronto, Ottawa, Halifax, and Orlando. So let's go. I know we get a little bit of the sales stuff out of the way. Let's get right into why we're all here to learn a little bit about cupping and how you guys can integrate it into your practice. So mobility pods are developed in Asia and brought to North America by the mtblade.com. So we've been running this course and selling these pods for the last few months based out of Manila and Singapore. We're just starting to, we've had a lot of requests about cupping, but we want to make sure that we have the proper education, the proper information, brought you guys a great program. We're not just about selling a product, we want to make sure we have a whole system together. So our goal is to create this well-rounded system that you can help your patients and clients get better. So our goal is to create a functional ability through the power of ancient Chinese. So our goal is we want to create mobility, get the patient to move better, decrease the inflammation, decrease the way the tissues are responding, and get our patients to move better. So what is cupping? So now we're going to go back. So again, a lot of patients, especially in our clinics in Canada, will ask about cupping and ask about those red marks they see on their skin. So we're going to take a few steps back, talk about how cupping actually came together, then the different kinds of cupping. So cupping, the ancient perspective. So cupping is an ancient Chinese therapy that is based on the belief that certain health problems can be caused by stagnant blood flow and poor energy flow throughout the body. To fix or prevent those health issues, cupping practitioners apply the cups, typically glass or silicone. In our case, we always use the silicone cups to your skin and create pressure that sucks your skin inward. So again, they believe that there's blockages in the blood flow, stagnant blood flow. Everything is about free flowing blood, free flowing energy. Help and the cups are going to help create that negative pressure to open up and get more blood flow. Now, there are two types of cupping. So there is wet and dry. If you're on Instagram or Facebook or social media, you'll see a lot of different kinds of cuppings. We want to just kind of differentiate between the two, wet and dry. With MobilityPODS, we typically, we always go towards dry kind of cupping, but we also want to educate you guys on wet, just in case more knowledge, more power if your clients are going to ask you about the different kinds. So wet cupping. Wet cupping creates a mild suction by leaving the cup in place for about 3 minutes. You're going to apply the cup to the skin for 3 to 5 minutes. The therapist then removes the cup and uses a small scalpel to make light, tiny cuts on your skin. Next, the therapist is going to apply a second suction to draw out small quantity of blood. You might get 3 to 5 cups in the first section. So with wet cupping, we're actually breaking the skin and drawing blood out of the skin. This is going to help remove that stagnant blood flow, and the body's going to repair itself and have new blood that has been created. So again, the steps are very simple. You find out where that stagnant blood flow is through different kind of assessment techniques, apply the cup for 3 to 5 minutes, remove the cup, apply slight little slits with the scalpel, so you're actually breaking the skin and causing the skin to bleed, reapply the cup to draw that blood out of the area. This is common to see on Instagram because it creates a great likable photo. We don't promote, we don't educate on this kind of cupping. We stick to more of the dry base cupping, which is MobilityPODS. So with dry cupping is a form of cupping most commonly used by healthcare practitioners in Canada and USA. It's called dry cupping. A glass, plastic, or silicone cup is placed on the skin with air within the cup that is removed, causing a vacuum effect. Dry cupping is a safe and beneficial technique and doesn't involve any breakage of the skin or drawing out of the blood. Dry cupping involves no direct drawing of blood, but still involves the creation of vacuum cup inside a cup and distraction of the soft tissues, resulting in increased circulation to the skin. This is immediately seen by the redness proofs underneath the cups. With MobilityPODS, we use a dry cupping technique to lift the skin, improve neurological stimulation, and improve mobility. So one thing we're going to talk about as well, with the dry cupping, we're not creating any kind of compression. We're trying to create separation. We're trying to create separation in between the skin, fascia, and muscle. If you do any kind of massage techniques or instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization techniques, we're trying to create separation and mobility between the tissues. When it comes to the cupping, we want to create that space in between the tissues. If I have any kind of injury, inflammation, scar tissue, those tissues will be stuck together. If I place a cup over top of those adhered tissues or where I think the tissues are stuck, it's going to create that negative pressure. It's going to create that lifting, which is going to separate the tissues. So again, that's why cupping works really well with any kind of massage, soft tissue mobilization, or any other soft tissue techniques. So the advantages of MobilityPODS. So MobilityPODS uses transparent silicone cups, allow one to see the skin tissue response to the cupping. In addition, silicone has a low toxicity and low chemical reactivity with lotions and creams. Silicone is non-porous, will not support bacterial growth. In addition, silicone cups are odorless, non-shattering, watertight, and hygienic as they are easy to clean. So MobilityPODS is an adaptation of an ancient technique. The purpose of this technique is to promote health and healing by loosening soft tissues like we talked about before. We want to create that space in connective tissue, including scars and adhesions. In addition, it is also thought to improve blood flow, circulation, and increase lymphatic flow. This therapy can also help improve functional mobility and joint performance. So again, our goal is we want to talk about a little bit about the system first. This is more of just a background about how it works, but we want to create that mobility in between the tissues. Create that separation. If we have good mobility through the tissues, we're going to have decrease in pain, an increase of an overall better well-being. So the suction negative pressure provided by cupping can loosen muscles, encourage blood flow, and sedate the nervous system, which makes it excellent treatment for high blood pressure. So when MobilityPODS silicone cups lift the skin, they also separate the layers of soft tissue directly underneath them. Most only a thin layer of fibrous tissue, which we also call fascia, that surrounds your muscles and organs. This separation allows the muscles to function more freely and helps improve blood flow. Your blood transports healing agents to injured areas, which helps reduce pain, inflammation, and speeds recovery from an injury. So again, like we talked about before, this approach, we want to create that separation between the two tissues, get more blood flow into the area. We can use this approach before we do any kind of soft tissue work or after doing any kind of soft tissue work. In our courses, we also teach us to use it with our exercise as well. Now, one of the approaches that we take is we take the functional part of the cupping is what we call the sliding technique. So we're actually going to use a sliding technique over top of tissues. So our goal with the sliding technique is you want to find a line of tension. And you have two tissues stuck together. For example, for our webinar today is we'll talk about vastus lateralis and the IT band on the outside of the leg. If I have those two tissues adhere together, it's going to have a greater result on my knee. It's going to cause knee pain and hip pain. I can apply a sliding technique in between those two tissues to help lift and separate the IT band off the vastus lateralis. We can also see this technique done on lots of places like the latissimus dorsi and the serratus anterior to improve shoulder flexion and extension. So with this technique, I'm going to take you through 10 steps of how to actually apply this technique. So we're going to apply the cups, move to the active range of motion while we're sliding the cups. So 10 steps. We have broken this down into 10 simple steps of how you can apply the cups and go through the different techniques. So step one is going to warm the relevant soft tissue either with the empty blade or repeated movement and exercise. We never want to just apply the cups right to the area. We want to make sure that the tissue is nice and warm because we're actually going to cause a little bit of lifting and sliding. It's like if you are exercising and you go right in heavy squats or bench pressing without doing a proper warm up. You can injure tissues, cause pain, actually have a negative effect on the technique that we're doing here. So step two is disinfect the cups with antibacterial soap and warm water between each patient. If a silicone cup feels too rigid, simply rinse it for a few seconds under hot water. We do use a silicone-based cup, so it can get rigid if it hasn't been used. So with that, we want to make sure we have a lot of mobility to the cup itself. So you can just apply it with our patients as well. We can have them hold it in their hand. The warmth in their hand will loosen up that cup as well. Step three is inform the patient that they will feel a pull on their skin and muscle as the cup is moved, which will feel quite uncomfortable. So again, this is not a comfortable technique. If your patient hasn't experienced cupping before, it's a unique and euphoric feeling. So you're actually feeling the skin and fascia lift up and feeling the tissue separate. So you want to keep in constant contact and constant communication with your patient as you're going through this technique. If you're a massage therapist or using this technique while your patient is laying prone or laying on their stomach and you can't see their face, make sure to constantly talk to them, communicate with them how they're feeling, if they're okay, just so they're not holding their breath, so that if it's uncomfortable, they feel comfortable with you just saying to stop or modify what you're doing. Step number four is to inform the patient there's possibility of redness or bruising after the treatment. We are creating change within the tissue, and with comes change comes increased blood flow, which could cause a little bit of redness and bruising. That is okay. Our goal is not to create bruising. Our goal is to create mobility. So there may be a byproduct of having a bit of bruising after we perform the treatments. Ensure plenty of moisturizing cream is used on the skin to allow smooth gliding of the silicone cups. Without proper skin lubrication, cup gliding will not be possible and very painful if performed on dry skin. So in our clinics or in our courses, we always recommend a little bit of cocoa butter. So apply a little bit of cocoa butter to the area before you work on the actual tissues. We don't want to go right to skin because we are sliding the cup up and down the skin. It could cause some tearing, some friction, be really uncomfortable for your patient if you don't apply that cocoa butter, cream, or lotion to the skin before you apply techniques. Step number 10, to attach the cup, use both hands to press down with the thumb top while fingers pull up the edges. The amount of suction is determined by the amount of squeezing. In patients with significant tenderness, start with light pressure, then increase distraction pressure as it's tolerated. So when we apply the cups, we actually flip the outsides and apply to the skin so it's suction up off the skin. There's no secondary pump or fire that we use with these cups. It's a simple flip the cup up, place it on the skin, and it's going to retract back in motion and lift that skin to the area. We don't want to put a ton of tension through the cup. We want to do light to moderate pressure when the first patient. Enough pressure that we're getting a sucking action, not enough pressure that it's uncomfortable to your patient. Step number 7 is the cup may be glided longitudinally, transverse, or in circular fashion with a gentle distraction force for 2 to 4 minutes. So again, if I'm working on my vastus lateralis and my IT band, we can follow up the vastus lateralis or the IT band exactly where the muscles go over top. Or I can apply a little bit circular motions if it's really adhesive. I have a marathon runner or a high-end athlete that uses is very quad dominant and is very powerful through the quads. I can apply a little bit of circular motions as I'm going up and down the vastus lateralis and the IT band to create that section. So step 8 is guide the patient to actually move the relevant joint in a repetitive pattern that will maximize the soft tissue movement underneath the cup. The movement is often active with assisted where the therapist guides the movement. So if I'm working on that vastus lateralis and IT band, I'm going to go into adduction as I'm gliding the cup because we want to create that separation between the tissues. We want to forcefully go through those movement patterns. The next step we'll do as well is that once we do this on the table or the plinth, we'll move into exercise 2, and we'll place the cups over where the adhered tissues are. For example, if I have a bodybuilding patient that I'm working with who wants to improve his depth of his squat or wants to get down lower into his squat, we find that his lower back is adhesed and preventing him from getting to the range of motion that he requires, we can place cups along his lower back and up top of his iliac crest and his glutes and have him go through active squatting motions. When he's going through the active squatting motions, we're creating that space in between that tissue, especially that thick fascia over top of the lumbar erectors. That's creating that space and may allow that bodybuilder to get a little bit lower into that squat. As he's going through that squat, we can place our hands on the cups and go through that circular motions or that up and down motion as well to really create that separation in between the tissues. Step number 9 is to remove the cups, simply pull and lift on the edges. So we don't want to pull straight up on the cups to lift it. We want to lift up on the edges and it's going to pop right off the skin. Once we complete it, we can move into instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization with the MCT blade. Step number 10, so the patient should immediately report a reduced pain and improved mobility. So again, when we go through our course, we always want to assess, test, retest. So I assessed, I found that my vastus lateralis and my T-band were adhesed. It's limiting my lunge, it's limiting my squat. We'll apply the cupping, do a little blading or taping. Once I retest it, we should have improved outcomes immediately because we're increasing that blood flow and increasing that spacing between the tissues. So it should be more free moving in between all those muscles and soft tissues. Contraindications. So again, a lot of soft tissue techniques don't have to follow along the same contraindications as MobilityPODS. So neural tissue sensitivity, blood diseases, patients on anticoagulants, dermatitis, open wounds, varicose veins, hernias, severe edema, severe health issues, areas near large veins such as the groin region, systematic inflammation conditions, infections, and general lesions. So next thing we always talk about is research. A lot of people are coming, especially in our office, say there's not a lot of research that supports cupping. Well, there is starting to become a lot more because cupping is becoming mainstream. It's not just based in Chinese medical practitioners. A lot of massage therapists, chiropractors, osteopaths, athletic therapists are starting to integrate because it's such a great modality to improve mobility and improve movement. So in recent press release, the NIH referred to a 2015 systematic review and meta-analysis of cupping that concluded cupping could be effective in treating the pain, disability associated with chronic neck pain, chronic low back pain in the short term. In a study of 70 patients suffering from tension and migraine headaches, the application of cupping improved 95% of cases, reducing the severity of headaches by an average of 66%. In the previous experience, the equivalent of 12.6 fewer days of headaches per month. Unquestionably, those results indicate cupping is a very safe and powerful non-pharmacological approach. If you want this research study, always email us. We have this stuff we post on our blogs, on Instagram. Send us a quick email. So email us at education@mtblade.com. We can always send that full research study out to you guys. Cupping marks. So lastly, before we move on to our exercise component is cupping marks. So a lot of patients ask, what are those cupping marks, what are those bruises? Remember, our goal with MobilityPODS is not to create bruising, not to create marks. That can be a byproduct of what we're doing, but it's not our goal, it's not our required outcome, is to leave the cups on until we get that ring or until we get that bruising. So it is a common misconception, however, the marks left by cupping are not bruises. So these are not bruising because we're not creating trauma to the tissue, we're creating separation to the tissue. So we're bringing new blood flow to the area, which is not bruising. The bruising is caused by impact trauma leading to breakage of capillaries and reactionary rush of fluids to the damaged location from the tissue injury. There's no compression in cup therapy. So just reiterate, we're not compressing the tissues. Our whole goal is to create a vacuum effect, create separation between the tissues and improve mobility. A byproduct of that is we are improving blood flow to the area. A lot of cupping where you see those dark bruises around the areas because the therapist will leave the cups on for an extremely long time. Remember, in our slides previously, our goal is to only leave the cups on for 2 to 4 minutes. we don't want to leave the cups on for longer than even 5 minutes. Is a bit too long to leave those cups on. It's a very intensive technique, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable as well. Our goal is to create patient being comfortable. So we talked a bit about cupping, how you can apply our sliding gliding technique, contraindications, and a few other things. So now let's talk about your role. So again, the way we want to incorporate cupping into your clinic is to assess, muscle test, mobility pods, blade, and reassess. Now, this is our typical standard of where you can actually integrate those into your work. So what we can also do is we can also apply these techniques to the corrective exercise. Like we talked about, we want to create that neuromuscular feedback and um, create that separation in between the two tissues. So now, once we've done our pods, we go into our isometric agonist-antagonist retraining. So we go into our pods and go to our corrective exercise. We don't do pods on this part, but our active PMF, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is we're going to apply the pods. So isometric and agonist-antagonist retraining is a technique to reestablish neurological firing pattern that the muscle experience with normal corrective or rehab exercise without putting dynamic load or stress to the muscle or joint. After injury or reparative strain, the receptors in the muscle, ligaments, and tendons and fascia are altered, and they say abnormal signals and information back to the spinal cord and the brain. When a muscle or joint is injured, movement may be impaired, which will increase the activity of the nociceptors, which are your pain receptors, and creates pain around the joint. When those receptors are increased, we have a decrease in our mechanoreceptor activity since joint movement is restricted. Isometric agonist-antagonist will increase mechanoreceptor activity, which will influence the nervous system at the spinal level and inhibit nociceptor activity. Hence why it always feels better to movement. So again, we want all the new studies of low back pain, you need to move that joint. You need to create mobility, create strength, and always move around the area. So why we do this after cupping and instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization? It's not just a straight exercise, it's to help refire the neurological system. So when an area sustained an injury, the soft tissue or movement pattern will be limited neurological firing, blood flow, and nutrition to the area. When I perform isometric agonist-antagonist retraining, will improve neurological response, repair the tissues, and retrain the muscle or movement. When we do our live course, we actually go through all the muscles that we talked about, how to perform this technique. So when I blade or cup and apply a little bit of isometric agonist-antagonist retraining, takes, like we said, it takes 5 to 7 seconds per area, so it can take about not even a minute to do, and the patient will feel a lot better. So how we do this? Just like the appropriate muscle testing, the practitioner trainer will shorten the intended muscle while applying a perpendicular force that matches the strength of the tissues or movement for 7 seconds. Once completed, the practitioner trainer will perform the same technique to the antagonistic muscle. So if we go back to my example of the vastus lateralis on the IT band, we're going to, again, apply this technique to vastus lateralis to re-engage and reinforce neurological firing to vastus lateralis. Then I'm going to go to my antagonistic muscle, which can be either my hamstring or my adductor group. Now, isometric agonist-antagonist retraining is done on the plinth. If my patient is ready, so after the 3rd or 4th session, we're going to what's called active PNF or active proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. This is essentially the isometric agonist-antagonist retraining is each individual muscle. Now we want to apply each individual muscle and get them to work together. This is where we can apply the cups to our active PNF. So the dysfunction many times can be related to a disruption in the neuromuscular system. Improving this system should then create more effective movements. In order for the neuromuscular system to be effective in coordinating movement, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation concepts should be utilized. Active PNF, so the muscles work synergistically. So again, we first start with isometric agonist-antagonist retraining, which works on each individual muscle. Once those muscles are firing and working, we can get those muscles to work together to form a specific movement. So the muscles must work synergistically together in order for movement to occur. This requires the muscles to have a flexibility to contract and relax in order to perform basic movements. Fundamental movements such as squatting, lunging, and stepping are PNF patterns that rely on the body's ability to effectively create, control mobility and stability. So active proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, so concern with the gross movements. So we're going to look at rotational diagonal patterns, functional patterns, three components of a reflection, extension, abduction, adduction, external, internal rotation. If you go back to my example of someone that has an issue with their vastus lateralis in the IT band, we want to go through those flexion, extension of the knee, abduction, adduction of the hip. So we can apply the cups where we feel restricted. We can derive that information from our functional assessment, which we talked about at the very beginning of the seminar. So we'll apply the cups along the dysfunctional areas and go through those same movements. I'm going to go through my flexion extension of my knee and my adduction, abduction of the areas to create and reinforce those tissues. Like we talked about, cups, we want to improve that blood flow and increase that circulation in between the actual tissues. So how we do this, we go isometric contraction of the agonist followed by isometric contraction of the antagonist. Produces co-contraction stability of the two opposing muscle groups. So that's everything in our webinar today. I know it's a lot of information that we go through, but I hope you guys can take a few tidbits and stuff that we talked about and apply it to your clients and help them get better and move better. So as soon as we're done this webinar, you'll be leading to a page where you can get 25% off MobilityPODS and courses. Again, we always like to hear from you guys. So if you do have any questions, concerns, or you want to learn more about what we talked about, always feel free to email us at support@mttblade.com, or you can email our education team directly at education@mttblade.com. We hope you guys learned some information about this course. We hope you guys see you in the future. We have a course on a webinar on Friday regarding kinesiology tape and a couple of new things we're doing with kinesiology tape. The next week we're doing back to our frozen shoulder and our introduction to instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization.